Welcome to EPTV and a brand new episode for you. And we have got two exceptional guests for you live on YouTube today. And we hope that we are going to get them to answer all of your questions because it is your horse, your questions. You've been sending your questions in. Now they are going to answer them. And I'm delighted to say we have two riders who both represented Team GB at last summer's European Championships in eventing. I'm going to start by saying a very warm welcome to Laura Collett.
Hi there.
Laura, brilliant to have you with us. I'm going to come and see how life in lockdown is treating you in a second. Our second guest is none other than a lady I work with often on the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast, Kitty King.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I'm all right, actually. I have to admit, the sun is shining and I get to spend my lunchtime talking to you two. I actually think I'm going to learn a couple of things here, so I'm looking forward to it. First of all, Kitty, how is life in lockdown with you?
Well, I feel that I'm an extremely lucky person compared to a lot of people out there because my life hasn't changed hugely. Other than not being able to go out competing and training, I can continue to ride my horses, be outside and do plenty of exercise. So my life on the yard hasn't changed hugely. So yeah, I do feel very lucky in comparison to a lot of people out there who, can't go and see their horses at livery yards and are very much more stuck at home.
It's a really difficult time, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people out there that are missing their horses, that aren't able to see them on a day-to-day basis as they would usually. Laura, you're also in a fortunate position to be at the yard. Your girls are at the yard as well. So you're all sort of there together and able to sort of carry on as best as you can.
Yeah, definitely. Feel very lucky. As Kitty said, really not a lot has changed other than we don't get to go and do the exciting part of competing, but we have a reason to get up every morning, go and look after the horses, and in a funny kind of way it means we get to spend a bit more time concentrating on the little things and doing all the jobs that we always say we'll do that when we have time, never have time. So my yard's very tidy and lots of organization, and yeah, it's difficult in a way, but also keep reminding ourselves how lucky we really are compared to an awful lot of people out there.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Everybody is going through such a difficult time, actually, and not able to go about their daily life. But in the grand scheme of things in the world, you kind of think, just keep going. We're all right. Now, we're going to be putting questions that have been sent in to you both. And if you would like to ask Laura and Kitty any questions, now is your chance. It can be absolutely anything from how you start your youngsters, and actually that's going to be a big topic of conversation, to what you can do to help a horse who's head shy. So if you've got any questions, comment here on YouTube and we'll get them to Laura and Kitty throughout the show as well. But I'm going to start with you, Laura. Young horses, you've been doing, I've seen a couple of posts on social media. You're a big fan of producing your own young horses from scratch. First of all, where do you start? How do you find those young horses in the first place?
I wouldn't say I have a real set way about finding young horses. I'm a very open-minded. I'll go anywhere, look at anything, and very much go on my feeling about things. And I've got a very exciting young horse at the moment who've probably seen a couple of little video clips of. He's a 4-year-old. I actually bought him off a video when I was in Jardy last year. Emily Llewellyn rang me and said, there's a horse here that reminds me of your type of horse. You need to have a look at him. So I looked at the video before he went through the auction, and he reminded me of a cross between London 52 and Mr. Bass. And
oh my God, that is like the dream, Laura.
Yeah, so I kind of had to buy him. Drank far too much gin and put in a bid that I really shouldn't have done, but I just felt like I know how difficult they are to find a really nice one. So I got brave and paid more money than I normally pay for them, but equally for what I think he is, he's not an expensive horse, and he was three when I bought him, unbroken. We broke him in, sent him away to be broken in, just very lightly backed, and then he's been out in the field until lockdown started 3 weeks ago, and he suddenly came in and he's been learning the ropes whilst I've got all the time in the world to spend with him.
And is the plan to keep him, or will he be a project that you sell on in the future?
So I've actually sold 3/4 of him already to some of my very loyal owners, because he's a horse that I already think an awful lot of. So they've very kindly got involved and are joining the journey from the very beginning.
And some of your best horses have come through. You just mentioned London 52 and Mr. Bass as young horses from you. Kitty, how about you? I know that you're quite often a fan of buying horses from Europe and very prolific in the sort of Le Lion d'Angers Young Horse World Championship. So it's a system that works well for you.
Yeah, I love doing the Le Lion championships with my young horses. I think it's a great kind of education for them. But trying to find the horses from youngsters to produce through to be able to compete at the likes of Le Lion, it's like a needle in a haystack. They're really difficult to find. So like Laura, I kind of tend to go anywhere and everywhere, and you look at everything. But I've got two really nice French horses. One of the French horses I actually went over to France and saw, and the other one was actually in England with Lucy Vigasmar and Porrick. So he, although he was French, he was over here, so it's a little bit easier to find him. But it is really difficult finding nice young horses nowadays.
I think they're a hot commodity, aren't they? A lot of people want to get their hands on them, and it's a case of finding them first. Okay, some questions coming in for you. Firstly, from Paula, and it kind of sticks with the youngster theme. Any tips to help with a youngster who wants to hang onto the right rein and difficult to turn right? They've checked all of their teeth, their back, no apparent physical reason. Is there anything that you could sort of suggest that they tried that might help? I'll come to you with that one, Laura.
I think often if they're hanging a bit on one rein, what we get obsessed with that rein, when actually it's probably more that they're not taking the left rein in this instance. So I would spend a lot of time actually concentrating on making sure that they're taking an even contact in both reins, and focusing more that you then get a bit more obsessed with the left contact rather than the right contact. And it's very much a bit of give and retake with the right, and try and get them consistent in the left. And I think with the young horses in particular, I would do a lot of it in walk, and because until you've got it in walk, you're not going to get it in trot and canter. So it's repetition, as with anything with horses, and being very clear with what you're asking and rewarding them when they do it right and they give you the right feeling. That's when you can progress into trot and then into canter.
I think that's a good point. And it's a little bit like humans, isn't it? I mean, I'm right-handed and I try to do everything with my right hand because it's easier for me, when in actual fact, that doesn't make the left side of me any better. Kitty, anything to add from you on that one?
No, like with Laura, very much be concentrating and getting the horse in the hand that it's not hanging on, and probably dropping, and also being quite strong. So with this horse, Paula was saying it was her right hand, so I'd imagine she probably needs to be a little bit stronger with her right leg and to really push the horse into her left hand to even up the contact. And when they're more even in the contact, then it makes everything so much easier. And not focus too much on your right hand, but more right leg, left rein. She
There you go, Paula. Hopefully that is helpful. Another one in from Peggy on email, who sent this in before the show. She has normally, perhaps not so at the moment, limited time to train. She says, should she focus on her horse's training on her weakest phase, which is the dressage, or try to make the jumping element as good as they can be, which are already her strongest phases? Kitty, I think you're going to say go and do the dressage, even if it's not as much fun.
I think particularly at the moment, while things are how they are, it would be a great time to actually put into practice working on your flat work, because that's also, I always find with the horses, the better they are on the flat, the more it will help your jumping anyway. So if your jumping's already good, imagine how outstanding it's going to be when you've really nailed your flat work. Very good point. Laura, agree?
Yeah, sadly, they don't get any better without practicing.
There you go, Peggy. Go and do some flat work. Okay, next to come in, Claire from St Albans. Actually, this is one probably focused at you first, Laura. You do a lot of work with racehorses. I know you were involved with a couple of horses that went very well in the Cheltenham Festival. Is your work with racehorses and schooling them actually something that you then sort of think, oh, I'm going to apply this to my event horses as well?
Not really, no. It's very different. They come in, the racehorses come in for specific reasons, to mainly help with their jump schooling. I find it in a funny way beneficial for me as a rider, because none of the racehorses are really schooled on the flat. Therefore, it's good for me to be riding it. Then they're not inexperienced horses, but they're inexperienced horses in what I'm teaching them, because we do poles. They're not, a lot of them have never seen a pole before. So it's good for my reactions. It's not often we get to, as riders, it's only ever really in competitions when things sort of go wrong and you get a funny jump and you have to react very quickly. Whereas I get it an awful lot with the racehorses that come in. You don't know if they're going to try and run out one way, or they're going to leave a leg, or they're going to guess at a fence and make mistakes. So it's very good for me as a rider to work on my reactions and my core strengths and my balance when things don't go totally to plan. So for me, it's great. I love helping the racehorses because I like being able to make a difference, and find it very rewarding, because you can make a big difference in a very short amount of time. And yeah, the Cheltenham week was pretty special to be involved with those two horses that went so well there.
I bet it makes it feel really worthwhile as well, doesn't it, when it all kind of comes together. And I imagine it's much harder to watch them run than it is sometimes for you to go out and do what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I genuinely didn't think I'd get as nervous as I did watching those two horses, especially St Calvados, because I'd known what he was like 3 weeks ago over a fence, and it was a lot of pressure. I felt a lot of pressure on me, having been, they came to mine in the morning of the race, and I was stood there and I was linking arms with my friend Hannah, and she was like, "You're actually shaking." And I was so nervous, but yet so relieved. Even just, I was like, "Just jump, please, just jump down." And then they both ended up being first and second. So it was pretty incredible experience to be a part of the whole thing, really.
I can imagine. Okay, next question from Danielle, who says she is 15 and would love to event professionally when she's older. She doesn't have her own horse at the moment, but she rides as much as she can. What can she do to help her sort of realize her dream? Kitty, what would you have told yourself at 15?
Well, I was very lucky because I had obviously some horses and some owners at that age already. But if you obviously don't have your own horse currently, but you want to make a path for yourself in eventing, I would definitely look at getting an apprenticeship with a top rider that you admire, because you can learn so much from different yards, different riders. And on the whole, we event riders, we like to help people. I've had one working people in the past who came to me without a horse, and we found her a really lovely horse, and she went from never having even competed unaffiliated to eventing at novice level within 2 seasons. So the riders out there will on the whole try and help you, because you're helping them in your yard. So I think you can learn an awful lot from an apprenticeship type scheme with top riders.
Yeah, work hard, be willing to put the hours in, and hopefully the opportunities will come back. Laura, have you had people within your yard as well that have had opportunities to sort of get experience in all the different avenues?
Yeah, I have, and I have to say it is one thing that when I look back on my career, it's one thing that I really wish that I had the opportunity to do, is spend a year in a top professional's yard to learn from them along the way, whereas I sort of had to learn the hard way by making the mistakes myself and things like that. But it's just the way it turned out for me. But it is something that I would definitely push people to do before setting up on their own, because I feel like you could learn an awful lot in a year that maybe might take sort of 4 or 5 years of doing it yourself and making mistakes along the way. And I think, like Kitty said, majority of the top riders are more than happy to help, and if you work hard, then you'll get more out of it in the long run.
I suppose it's as well seeing how different people do things, don't they? And then you find your own path in life. Okay, another one in from Claire. Now, Kitty, I'm going to come to you first, because when we came onto this call, you said, oh yeah, I've used Zoom because I use it for my Pilates, and it's actually about rider fitness. Obviously, life at the moment is a little bit different. We're doing a lot of things online. Is that something you've normally done? Are you doing it differently in lockdown?
Well, I normally go to Pilates twice a week to a studio. So obviously I haven't been able to do that. But Claire, who's my Pilates instructor, has set up some Zoom meetings, and I went and collected some kit from her. She left it outside her door. So got kind of my roller and various different balls and weighted balls and some kind of elastic straps. So went and collected all those from her, and then we've been able to carry on with our Pilates sessions kind of, you know, from home. There, yes, they're not quite the same as being in her studio, but it's kind of ticking me over, and hopefully I'm not going to be losing all my core strength, which I've kind of been trying to build up over the years, and have been religiously going for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, twice a week. So it's great to be able to do that. And also I find Pilates actually quite relaxing, because you can kind of switch off from the horses for an hour. So it's been great to continue with that side of my personal rider fitness.
Yeah, that's very fair. Laura, I did see that you got nominated to go for a 5K run and donate to the NHS, but do you normally do a lot of fitness, or is it riding a lot of horses that keeps you fit?
Definitely do. I think it's really important to do the rider fitness. Normally when things are normal and we're doing more riding and everything, I try to go to gym classes 3 times a week, which are now being done, as Kitty said, via Facebook live videos instead of actually going to the gym. But it's slightly changed, because obviously all the equipment's there, but body weight work is actually very easy to do, and there's kind of no excuses not to keep up with all the fitness. And now in lockdown, where I've got more time on my hands, I have been going running as well, just to try and keep as fit as possible, so that as soon as things start back up, then there's no excuses and not behind the times, and ready to crack on.
You'll be ready to go. Okay, another question for you. Actually comes in from New Zealand, from Jody, who says, at the level at which you're both competing, does it feel like a job? And do you ever just go out for a ride just for fun? Laura, maybe come to you first.
Yeah, I find that I am often, you know, out riding the horses and thinking that I am the luckiest person around to call it my job. And the other day I went out because I had a bit more time. I actually took Mr. Bass out and went for a 2.5 hour jolly investigating bridle paths, and I genuinely, the sun was shining and it was amazing. And we're lucky to have the opportunity to do things like that on horses, like, you know, for me, like Mr. Bass, and we both had a great time. So yeah, we're very fortunate the position we're in.
Yeah, I have to admit, that sounds like the dream, going off for a nice hack on Mr. Bass. And I'm going to ask you about him in a second, because he was a pretty popular topic of conversation from our listeners. Kitty, how about you?
Oh, very much kind of what Laura said. Like, I feel so incredibly lucky to call this my job, whereas really it is from day to day. To me, it's not really like hard work. You obviously get the odd day when it's chucking it down with rain and freezing cold, and then suddenly horses do feel a lot more like a job then, when you have to go out and have to go riding in the miserable weather. But you know, when it's like this with beautiful weather and plenty of time on our hands, being able to go out and enjoy the horses and, you know, have fun with them, teach them new things that perhaps you wouldn't normally have time to teach them, you know, at the moment, and actually just enjoying how much they're improving is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, and probably one of those things, actually, as with all life at the moment, that it's quite nice to take a breath and sort of take stock, and makes you think and appreciate how lucky we are. Laura, going back to Mr. Bass, because he's been a huge part of your career over the last few years. He was the 7-year-old young horse world champion a couple of years ago. He's given you some very, very happy days, including a runner-up position at Le Moulin on his 5-star debut. He is on the comeback trail from injury, and I presume all going well. Obviously, his plans are on hold for the moment, but all fingers crossed for whenever we do get going?
Yeah, he was due to have his first run back this Friday at Bicton, so kind of gutted that I'm not going to be able to do that, but at the same time I think, you know, he's in full work and feeling absolutely amazing. So the enforced extra long break isn't going to do him any harm. If anything, it will be good for him to, you know, do even more strengthening up and be ready to rock and roll when we're finally allowed out. But yeah, everything, I mean, touch wood, everything has gone absolutely as well as can with any injury. And he's had such a steep learning curve through his career because he's been so talented. You know, he was jumping around 3 stars, well, the old 3 stars, new 4 stars as an 8-year-old, finished on his dressage score at every one he did. So I think the year out has probably just given his body time to mature and strengthen, and hopefully he's going to come back better than ever.
Well, we can't wait to see him back. And of course, London 52 as well, who was the Buccolo winner from last year. Tokyo 2021, as it is now, got to get used to saying that. I presume that actually another year wouldn't do any harm in terms of looking forward to next summer for both of your boys.
Yeah, no pressure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, to be honest, for as far as London 52 is concerned, the Olympics now being 2021 is probably a blessing in disguise for him personally. I always sort of said I felt Tokyo was probably going to come a year too soon, so now I don't have that excuse, so I'm going to kick on.
Kick on and go for 2021. Kitty, Vendredi Beat, who was the horse that you rode at last year's European Championships. You finished best of the Brits there. I know the plan was originally this season to go out to badminton, but a lot of people asking what's in store for him in the hope that, you know, come next year, he'll again be in contention for selection.
I mean, obviously now the big aim is Tokyo 2021, which now seems a really long way off, having it thought this spring it was just around the corner. So it's been able to kind of refocus and replan, but it's very difficult planning events now because we don't know when our season's going to restart. But hopefully if we can get some events in the autumn, it would be wonderful to try and aim him for a 5-star. If any are running in the autumn time. If not, we will have to crack on next spring and aim for badminton again, with the long-term goal trying to really nail it so we can get a spot for Tokyo. That would be the long-term dream and goal, really.
The aim absolutely is the aim. Tokyo 2021. We'll be looking to watch both of your progress going into next year. We hope we'll be back eventing very, very soon. But thank you both for coming on. It's been a lovely lunchtime chat here on EPTV. We hope you've enjoyed it as well, watching at home. Don't forget that you can subscribe if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and tick the little bell. You'll get notified every time we go live. And at 1 o'clock on Friday, we have a Goffs special with Mike Cattermole that you won't want to miss. Laura, thank you very much. Kitty, thank you. Both stay safe in lockdown. Thank you at home for watching, and we'll be back very soon on EPTV.